Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah.
Sarah, let's start with something that's great that happened this week.
My good thing is going to be that Travis Baldry gave us an advanced copy of Legends and Lattes, which is basically a D&D coffee shop AU, and I love it so much.
I am not usually a mood reader, but coffee shop alternate universes is something that sometimes I am absolutely 100% in the mood for.
This is great. It's like this orc gives up adventuring she retires to open up a coffee shop. And it's really cozy. Like, yes, there are bad things that happen.
The whole point of coffee shop.
Yes. But I love it. It was exactly what I was in the mood to read. It did jump ahead to the top of my reading list.
Glad to hear it.
And your good thing, Lily?
I went to the flower show in Seattle, saw lots of really beautiful, display gardens and all the plants that they have done crazy science things to make them bloom in fucking February. And one of the plants there that I saw was a flowering maple, and they have the craziest little hanging lantern flowery things. And so I bought a little tiny one. And
those are so pretty.
Cannot wait. They're beautiful.
Please post lots of pictures when it blooms.
I will. I promised to post pictures of my tulips as well, but they have not bloomed yet. I'm not I'm not holding out on you, I promise. It is just
it's not quite tulip season yet.
No, my crocuses have sprouted though, so that's nice.
Oh, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That's progress.
No flowers yet, but yes. Well, Sarah, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking an unholy combination of a whiskey mule and a whiskey sour. And by that, I mean it's a whiskey sour with ginger beer.
That sounds very good.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah.
No complaints here.
I am drinking a Shilling cider, their London Dry variety.
Shilling is nice.
I love Shilling. They're local. I don't normally go for London Dry, but I got it for a recipe. I'm making a pot roast that uses cider. So
dry cider is my preferred cider.
I usually go for tart and sweet. Any combination of those two things.
I like a little bit of tartness, but I mean, you know me and sweet stuff, even when it comes to cider.
I do, which is weird because whiskey sour and ginger beer sounds like it would be fairly sweet. I guess depends on the ginger beer.
Yeah, I think it depends on the ginger beer and the ratio of lemon juice to simple syrup.
Yeah. You kind of already told us something good that you've read lately, but have any more?
Yeah, I've been reading a couple of things. One of those was A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney for February, she wrote. And normally I kind of think that comp titles aren't actually very comparable. I don't actually think that a lot of the times it's helpful. But for this, it was Buffy meets Alice in Wonderland, and that is exactly what you get.
Exactly what it says on the box.
Yes.
I'm glad you explained because I did not know what a comp title was. So I was like, oh no, A Blade So Black sounds like a pretty good title. I don't understand where the problem would be there.
Comparison titles.
I figured that out with context clues.
Yes. I suppose the answer for you is not much.
I have been reading the instruction or the care instructions for flowering maples.
Well, I'm not sure if that qualifies as good, but it's exciting because it means you have a flowering maple.
Yeah, no, that doesn't count at all. That's all I got, though. Although, you did make me watch something today.
Does that count as good?
No.
What Lily is hinting at is that we are going to have a Rings of Power trailer check-in because the trailer just dropped. Although by the time you're actually listening to this episode, it will have been out for like a week and a bit.
So recording this is as pointless as me watching the trailer. I cannot stress enough. It does not matter what they put in the trailer. They could have had like 2 tennis balls on sticks with someone doing like funny puppet voices over the top, and it would not have affected whether or not I'm going to watch this show. Like, I'm gonna watch it.
I mean, I am the same way, except that I like, even if the trailer doesn't matter, I like having an idea of what to expect when I go into a show.
Oh, so an unfocused, mismatched of like group of nonsense.
Setting expectations.
Yeah.
Now I know what to expect.
My expectations have always been pretty low. I just remember there was a quote when Amazon first bought the rights that Amazon should have its own Game of Thrones. And I was like, oh no.
I mean, that's what they've been saying about, pardon the Wheel of Time reference, Wheel of Time. Like, they said that about, because that's Amazon as well.
Yeah.
But
at least that storytelling format is not as much of a leap.
Yeah. I don't think that you've seen the Vanity Fair article that came out a couple of days ago about Rings of Power.
I have not.
It was a very interesting read. It didn't necessarily increase my confidence at all. There was a line about how Tom Shippey, who's a very well-known and well-regarded Tolkien scholar, was initially attached to the project. And then he gave like an interview in Germany speculating on what might be in the show, and he got fired.
Oh, geez.
And I don't know what other Tolkien scholar is still working on the show, but that didn't, that didn't make me confident.
Yeah. I know they got the rights to some actual work. I think you said that it might be the appendices. Is that it?
I believe that they have the rights to the appendices. I could be wrong about that. And the rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are up for sale, or going up for sale. So maybe they'll try to get the rights to that as well.
I knew that they had purchased some kind of rights, but I was pretty sure it wasn't the Silmarillion, because they're not they're playing that very close to the chest. There's a reason why those aren't a book. Like,
the reason is partially because Tolkien never finished it, but
sure. But like, I was going to say, why are they trying to make one comprehensive story out of all of those like sundry bits? But I actually don't think they are. So that trailer had too much. It was 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag.
I think it looked pretty. Like, they're clearly spending a lot of money on this. I mean, they are spending a lot of money. That's not speculation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it will probably be a very pretty show. I think if I divorced my feelings about Tolkien from my feelings about the show, like, I might even think it's a really good show, but I don't think it's going to be a good adaptation of any sort.
Could they just admit that this is fan fiction set in Middle Earth? I think we would all feel better about it if they weren't trying to be like, it's the prequel. Like, no. Call it what it is.
Yeah.
I saw all of your self-insert female main character, like original characters in that trailer. I saw them.
Yeah. So I'm still concerned, I think. I haven't gotten to the cautiously optimistic stage.
I think it's going to be a garbage fire, but I'm going to love every minute of it. But I really want, and it's never going to happen, but I really want one movie for the Lay of Luthien.
Yes.
That story has everything. They don't have to shoehorn in a strong female character. There's already a romance, like, main plot line, and there's some like kick-ass demigod fighting. What more do you need?
Yeah, that would be good.
In one movie, no stretching it out. Don't add any extra shit. Just do the Lay of Luthien. That's it.
I don't think that I would trust them to only do the Lay of Luthien, though.
Who's them? I'm not saying Amazon. I'm just saying that needs to be done.
I'm saying the them who is hypothetically doing it.
Gotcha. What do you mean?
But yes.
Like, you think they should add extra stuff?
No, I don't think they should. I just worry that they would.
No, that's why I'm saying in my perfect world, it would not.
Yes. But I agree with you that that would be a very good movie.
They don't have to change a thing. It would be, yeah. It's never going to happen.
We live in hope.
A girl can dream. All right. Speaking of girls dreaming, that's 90% of Azura Ghost.
That is a very good segue. I was going to say, speaking of books that we want to see turned into TV shows, because I think this would be a very good TV show.
I mean, yeah. That's just not something that we had. I'm basing purely off of our notes.
Yes.
So we read Azura Ghost by Essa Hansen. This is the second book in a series. You can listen to our episode on Nofek Gloss, which came out a couple weeks ago. I guess a couple more when this one comes out. It's there. It's not that long ago.
The episode came out early January, if time has any meaning to you. It might not.
Which is mostly relevant because this episode is absolutely going to spoil Nofek Gloss, which is the first book in the series. It's pretty impossible to talk about the second book and not spoil the first one. We're not even going to try.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a fun conversation.
Wow, that character sure is in both books, huh?
Yeah, this character, but even that could be a spoiler.
No, literally this character. We couldn't say a name.
Yes.
But we're not going to do that.
But we will be segmenting our spoilers for Azura Ghost as we normally do.
Yes. I feel like there are obviously many different kinds of sequels, but there's very broadly, there are the ones that are a direct continuation from the previous book. And then there are the ones that are sort of more of a coda or an echo or just another book in the same universe. And this one is definitely a direct continuation from the first book.
Yeah, it's interesting because the first book has that 10-year time gap at the end of it, which I almost think would have been better at the very beginning of this book. I guess it serves as a hook for Azura Ghost, but it does, since this book takes place after that 10-year passage of time, it kind of feels like it thematically it fit better here.
I disagree because the scenes that Hansen includes at the end of Nofek Gloss are sort of directly tying up some of the loose ends of that plot line. And I think that book felt like a more complete story instead of just, oh, you sold me half a book. Great.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I can see that. I won't argue too much.
I am also a little fuzzy on where the line is because I went directly from the end of Nofek Gloss to the preview chapter of Azura Ghost. So I'm not actually clear on where the line is.
I did not do that. So I think I have a little bit more of an idea.
I mean, I went
where
back.
The one book ends. Yeah.
It's interesting. Both of these books do this, but the last couple of chapters are just titled as, regular chapters, but they definitely feel like sort of an epilogue type thing, which I quite liked. I think it allows us to see other characters' perspectives in both cases. I don't think this is a spoiler. There are a couple of chapters at the ends of both books that are from not one of the main characters' perspectives. And it sort of gives us a different angle and fills in a little bit more about what was going on. And I think wraps up the whole story very nicely.
I definitely think that it worked very well for Azura Ghost. Like I liked seeing that in this book. Not to say that I disliked it in Nofek Gloss. And
I think we might have ulterior motives for Azura Ghost for liking the epilogue-esque chapters in Azura Ghost.
Well, we'll not talk about that just yet.
I think it's very interesting that in my mind, these are definitely epilogue chapters, but they're not sort of separated from the main text in that way, which is sort of just a different reading experience. I don't know. It connects it more to the main story than saying, oh, this is like an extra.
Yeah. I think that was probably my issue with that portion of the book in No Fat Gloss, and that it
Mm-hmm.
felt very disjointed because of the time skip,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels a lot less, a lot more seamless here.
I think the time skip doesn't bother me because that no fet gloss had already established that time is a little fluid, not time itself, but the way characters experience time. Kaiden had artificially aged himself 6 years in a day. So he had all of those years of experience and thoughts and learnings.
It wouldn't have bothered me if it was the end of the series,
Interesting.
because that would have felt like, I don't know, a time skip like that at the end of a book to me feels very final.
Interesting.
I mean, I think that's just a me thing. I don't.
Maybe. I think I would have approached it differently if we hadn't already experienced a kind of time skip
Mhm.
in the novel because of Kaiden's like they have a word for it. Super aging, superpower sci-fi thing. I'm sure that's the exact phrasing that Hansen uses.
I think it is.
Yeah.
If you searched the ebook, you would definitely find that.
Oh man. I feel like I don't recall exactly, but I think I had argued that No Fet Gloss was like solid science fiction by my weird definition of it. Azura Ghost gets weird.
I think Azura Ghost is much more of a genre mashup, or like science fantasy.
I think it's much more science fantasy, which is not a bad thing. It just makes me feel silly for declaring so definitively that No Fet Gloss is being sci-fi.
Well, no, but I don't think that's silly at all, because it's one book. You're not
It's a different
saying
book, yeah.
it's a different book. Like, you're not saying that you weren't saying that the series as a whole was definitively sci-fi, just that No Fat Gloss. And it will be interesting to see what the third book, how sciencey or not the third book is.
It's probably going to go farther. So in the first book, we see a little bit of gravitas, which is a genetic ability one specific humanoid species has to influence the thoughts and emotions of others. It's just sort of hinted at that it's like, oh, maybe it's pheromones, like whatever. Vague science, let's move on. And that doesn't come up. Well, it comes up, but we don't see it through like a large part of like, it's very pivotal. Oh, I don't have to worry about spoilers for that one. Hey, I don't have to dance around this.
Yeah. That's No Fat Gloss. we said we don't care about spoilers for No Fat Gloss.
Okay. So the gravitas is obviously instrumental in No Fet Gloss, but it only comes up during those key moments. It's not something that's like constantly happening throughout the book that we're seeing all the time, which means it's like mysteriousness doesn't feel like magic. It just feels like it's unknown. Whereas in this book, it's like, let's just do astral projection the whole time. Or luminiciferosity. I think Essa Hansen's fucking with me. Did you notice I think it's the inscription at the beginning?
I didn't look at the inscription at the beginning.
So, okay, I noticed in the first book that the word luminous is used a large number of times. And then in this one, we find out that they're astral plane, or it's called the luminiferous. The luminiferous place. And this book spends a lot of time dealing with that. And so the word luminous just showed up twice as much.
There was a lot of words that started with luminous in them. I find it funny how much that bothers you, how much you comment on it. I don't know if I would say bother, but
it stands out. Some words can be used quite a bit and you don't notice it. But luminous is a word. It's a $5 word.
It's mostly used, I won't argue in the first book, but here I think like 99% of the time the context is the
luminiferous, I think.
Yes.
And that bothers me much less because that's basically a proper noun. And so that can fall into the background because that's just the name of a thing. But it is also still used as an adjective quite a bit.
I didn't notice it as an adjective. I focused on it as a noun.
The problem is once you notice it, it never goes away. That's the real thing. I think it shows up twice in the same paragraph early on in Nofet Gloss, and after that I was ruined. There was I don't even want to call it a science fiction thing, speculative technology that felt extremely realistic, maybe in a bad way. We do eventually see a security system for somewhere, now it's not a spoiler, that tracks footsteps and uses those like movements throughout the location to predict someone's intentions. And I feel like we're practically already there, right?
Yeah, that was a little uncanny. Like I could see that being developed by some startup, within the next 10 years.
Yeah. And see, to me, that's very cool sci-fi. Where you're like, oh, fuck.
Cool, but also horrifying.
Yeah.
Because think of the implications.
Yes, exactly. Other than that, I would say most of this book is magic wands with some gears glued on them to make it science. Which, again, I don't have a problem with. It does feel very different from the first book in that way, though.
Yeah, I agree that it felt a lot less hard sciencey than the first book.
Which is, I'm going to say, a good thing that it was sort of introduced. Okay, there we go. Was that the epilogue, or was that in the preview where we find out that Lita, Kaiden's long lost, presumed dead?
That's the last chapter.
That is the last chapter? Okay.
Yeah.
See, if Lita being able to astral project was not introduced at the end of Nofet Gloss, I think Azura Ghost would have been a little bit more jarring.
Just because of the more fantasy element that brings in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
And so even though we don't spend a lot of time with it in Nofet Gloss, at least having the concept introduced means
it paves the way.
Yeah, because quite a bit of this book is how the astral plane affects the physical plane that the characters are familiar with, and sort of how I'm not going to go. No, that would be spoilery. Until now, that wasn't spoilery. It explores that quite a bit and poses some very interesting questions that I think are more specific to this world, as opposed to posing questions that reflect on our world.
I think I can parse that sentence.
I think a lot of the sci-fi elements in Nofet Gloss have almost like direct commentaries on our world, whereas a lot of the questions posed in Azura Ghost deal so directly with this astral plane that there's not as much of a connection with the shared human experience.
You mean we aren't astral projecting our bodies into the luminiferousness?
Well, I'm not. If you are, I think you have some splaining to do.
Surprise! Something I really like, though, is that Lita, who we know is Kaiden's, childhood friend, has returned, and they have a very complicated relationship in this book, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that it's not romance-based. It's very explicitly not romance-based. And also that they both recognize that they've had 10 years apart with very different experiences and that they're very different people now. And I feel like a lot of times in a book where there's reuniting of this sort, there's never any time spent, or not enough time spent dealing with the fallout of, the time apart and the different experiences.
I feel like it's either completely glossed over and hand waved away, or it's the source of much melodrama.
Right. Yeah.
And they spend too much time going, I don't even know you anymore.
Yeah, like it's either not a thing or it's an insurmountable conflict.
But I agree, in this book, these characters are very sincere with each other, that of course they still care about the other person and their shared history, but that doesn't mean they know the other person.
Yeah.
Because they have clear communication, they're able to, like, I wouldn't say get past it, but they work through it.
Yeah. And like it does cause conflict, and it is the source of conflict for some of the book, but not the entire book.
Ooh,
no,
Hansen, no, these were good sounds. Those were good sounds.
Okay.
Sorry. Hansen continues to write such fast-paced storylines. It's incredible. You'd think I would have learned, but even at the beginning of this book, Lita is introduced, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is the complex that the characters are going to be dealing with throughout the plot line of the novel. Got it. Like, no, they deal with it in the first, like, it being the specific situation that Lita is introduced with.
Yeah, like it occupies like
right
the
away.
First third of the book, maybe, if that.
Yeah. Which is fantastic.
There is so much packed into this book, which is great. Like, it keeps it moving very, very quickly, and I love it.
Yes. I feel like one of the things I brought up about Nofet Gloss was how Caden makes the same mistake over and over again because he's young and doesn't know better. And it was a little bit frustrating, but understandable, and it went fast enough that it was fine. In Azura Ghost, Caden makes the same mistake with Lita, which I'm not going to say what that mistake is exactly, but he does make mistakes with her over and over again. But it didn't feel frustrating to me as the reader because his thought process was very understandable every time. I wasn't going, oh my God, what are you doing?
It does feel like he has learned and matured in this book, and like he's actually grown as a person since we first met him in Nofet Gloss.
Which I think that we get a lot of that growth in Nofet Gloss.
We get a lot of that growth in Nofet Gloss, but I think we see it actually in action. Like, he's put in these situations where in the previous book, he would have just repeated himself. And you can actually see that, oh, he's making different decisions now.
Yes.
Like, he has learned things.
And although he does make several mistakes with Lita in the first half of this book, I mean, he makes mistakes through the whole, but I'm saying like the repetitive mistakes.
Yeah. But even
they come from a more genuine place, I think. It's not the rash anger of a hurting child.
And I would say even there, he's not making the exact same, like he's doing similar things maybe, but he is learning incrementally each time.
Yes. There is one specific example I'm thinking of, which is probably a spoiler to talk about, but he is misinformed, right? Like he overhears something that makes him think a situation is one way. And so he acts on that situation, and that ends up being not the case. And it's another big mistake. But like, given what he knew or thought he knew, I have no fault in him taking the actions that he did. Like, being misinformed is not making a bad decision.
Yeah. That's having bad intel maybe, but you can see where it's coming from. I do think one thing that he keeps doing, and he did in Nofet Gloss, and he still does, is he misinterprets friendship for gravitas like a dummy. I mean, to be fair, I think he experiences friendship and gravitas at the same time, basically.
Mhm.
So it's understandable that he can't really distinguish the two, but also, like, as a reader, I'm like, Caden, you dummy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's understandable that someone who is thrust into this wider world finally finds people who care for him, and then also finds out that he could be manipulating people at any moment. Of course, that's going to give you issues.
Yes, I mean, it's understandable. Like I said, he doesn't, I don't think that he has enough experience with being confident in which one is happening to actually be able to distinguish.
Yeah. And it's also very unclear if it's something that can be turned off.
I think that this book makes it more clear that, at least in Caden's case, he has a level of control over it because it's not that powerful.
That's true, because there are the three characters that we see use it. There's Abris, Thray, and Caden, and they all use it very differently, and to some degree even have different effects from it.
Yeah. And different strengths of it.
I think that's a better way to say it. Different strengths. But when you have a sample size of 3, there's no way to know what's normal with this power, especially considering it's not like he's sitting down and having long heart-to-hearts with any of these people.
Not yet, anyway.
Do you remember why he named his pet Nofek C?
I do not.
Because what?
I do not know why he named C, or I don't remember, but C is awful cute.
Oh yeah, love him. And for listeners, to clarify, his pet warg dog cat monster puppy is just named the letter C. And we see him adopt C at the end of at the end of Nofek Gloss. I don't remember why he gets named that.
I don't remember either.
I mean, I'm a sucker for animals, so
yes,
maybe it's not a surprise that C is the best. Anytime C's safety is threatened, I was like,
I know.
Don't do this to me.
I got so worried. And like, C is in some genuine danger at points.
Oh, C does not. Well, I was gonna say C does not make it out unscathed. Is that a spoiler? Maybe. Is that not a spoiler?
I don't think it's
how C makes it out.
I don't think it's inherently a spoiler.
I think we need to move to the spoiler section.
Okay.
So that we can talk about it. Why should you read this book? I mean, if you read the first one and liked it.
Yes. If you continue to want very fast-paced science fiction or science fantasy.
Yeah, I will say, if you read the first one and liked it, this book does have a lot more fantasy elements in it. However, the characters and their relationships with each other are all still on like a very clear progression through from the first book in a way that feels very cohesive and natural. I mean, and I think that's my favorite aspect of most books. So still a great sequel and still definitely something you should read. Like I said, I don't usually read the little preview at the back of books, but I could not stop myself at the end of Nofek Gloss. So
I mean, we very specifically rearranged our schedule so that we could cover this close to when it came out, because I didn't want to have to wait to read it.
Every moment in both of these books makes you really want to know what happens next. Mm-hmm. And luckily, there's a book that you can read that tells you what happens next. We do now have to wait a year.
I know. Book 3 doesn't come out until March of next year.
But at least we know what happens to C, the only person who really matters. To avoid spoilers for Azura Ghost, skip to 5404. So we're introduced to Azura in the first book. Azura is the sort of consciousness in the spaceship that Kaiden bonds with. I
don't think in the first book that we get quite as clear an idea of how conscious Azura is.
We know that she has a personality.
We know
that. And we know that she's bonded with Kaiden. But the ramifications of that aren't really clear.
Again, I don't think that we know how much of a personality she has.
Right. It's just a ship that has a personality. This is a whole ass being that has been trapped in a spaceship.
Yes. This is a character in their own right.
Is Azura a character, or is she a Deus Ex Machina? She is literally a god trapped in a machine for most of the first and second books.
I mean, she does get Kaiden out of some pretty bad scrapes, kind of at the very last minute.
The reader is ready to accept that any graven being, I mean, they are effectively gods. They're not, I mean, they even are kind of worshipped a little bit.
I think Aberys definitely worships them.
Well, and so you think anyone under her command doesn't also?
Well, Kaiden's not under her command.
That's true. But these sort of this historical race of beings who have left relics all over the multiverse, we're ready to accept that they have advanced powers, right? Like that's not a leap at all. But they're never really defined. And in this book, I definitely got to the point where the characters were thinking, how are we going to get out of this mess? And I was like, oh, well, either Azura or Lita is going to discover a new power and save you, obviously. Because their power seems to be unlimited. And if there is a limit on it, it's nowhere near yet.
I don't know. I kind of disagree with you on Azura, because there's the one, well, there's two cases, right? There's the case where Azura's ship is smashed and Azura then follows Kaiden, and that's one kind of expansion of power. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other case where we discover that Azura can then essentially inhabit any other ship. Well, and I guess we do find out that Azura can interact with technology and do stuff. Yeah, okay. I take my argument back.
And then, so you're right. Knowing that she can inhabit ships is one thing, but when she then uses that to just like inhabit all of the ships of a fleet and take it out in like 30 seconds, that was definitely an escalation of power.
Yeah, I mean, she's not inhabiting all of the ships at once. She's going through them, but
yeah. Before, it has always been she could help Kaiden drive a ship by possessing the ship. But now she's suddenly just like flying through them and causing mischief and saving the day.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much of an expansion, but it is a little bit. I'll grant you that.
I guess also with Lita consistently discovering new abilities she has because of the astral plane or the luminiferous.
Yeah, like it feels, I don't necessarily want to say balanced, but it doesn't feel like only Kaiden is getting, or I mean, I'm counting Azura Ghost Azura as part of like Kaiden, but like it doesn't feel like only Kaiden is getting these level ups.
No, it feels like the Graven are.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that is like, I'm okay with the Graven being extremely powerful in unknown ways, but there never seems to be like consequences for any of these things. They just keep getting better and better. And Lita does have a bad time. But even then, like none of the consequences are permanent. She just like has a flu.
I think that's partially because this is the second book. And I think a lot of the consequences are going to come in book 3.
Fair enough. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, because this book sets up a lot of what I am guessing is going to be the major conflict in book 3. Maybe I'll be wrong about that. But
it'll turn out to be the major conflict of the first chapter.
Again, I think that part of this was set up and that it will have more ramifications in the third book.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And we got the reveal that Kaiden is not 1/3 of the Graven, not trilogy. Not triumvirate.
Well, so there are three different kinds of graven.
I know what's the triangle word I'm trying to think of. It's the Christian one, the Trinity. That's it. Trinity. And that was on the fly words are weird. There is the graven trinity of the three different like flavors of graven. And for a very long time, we think that Caden is the lost one. But then we find the lost one and discover that he has actually been all three the whole time, which is interesting. And I mean, obviously she's gonna tell us more about that, right? That's not just gonna be like a by the way, and moving on.
No, I think we're gonna get a lot more of that in book 3.
Yeah.
We just have to wait a year.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about how Abra sucks?
Oh, please.
Abra sucks so bad.
It was so well done, though, because through, I would say, like over half of the book, maybe like 3/4 of the book, she is just ominous.
Yeah.
Because she herself is so very sweet and sincere and just like truly wants to do the right thing. But even as the reader, you're like, no, nah, bitch.
Her idea of the right thing is so like horrifying. It's just it's wrapped up in pretty words, but you're like, I don't think so.
At the beginning, she has a whole plan for how to unite all of the universes without like losing anybody. She was like, we're going to do it slow. We're going to make sure everyone can integrate healthily. And that was truly her goal for quite a bit of the book. But even then, it's like, oh, there's something sketchy about you. And of course, yes, she ends up being a power tripping maniac because she was just so hurt.
Yeah, I mean, so my note for page 68 was that Abras's ideal sounds like monotonous dystopia wrapped in pretty words. Like, it's very obvious, or I think the reader can tell that something's up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're supposed to be scared of her.
But at the same time, all of the characters think that she's the graven to back until the very last quarter of the book.
Well, I think because we know we're reading a book, we can say, well, there's definitely something else going on here. But if you were able to take her pretty words at face value, and I think she did at the beginning genuinely want to make all of these changes.
I don't think that at the beginning she had malicious intent.
Right.
But I also think that it would still have been a dystopia, even if she meant it well.
Well, unity is already a dystopia because no one really has free will, right?
Right.
So she just wants to expand that. So yeah, I guess you're right. Just by the very nature of her having gravitas, she cannot be a good guy. A ruler cannot have that power.
Yes, I guess. But by that definition, Caden's not a good guy either.
But we discussed how it seems like he can turn his on and off.
Yeah.
She can't.
He definitely, Abras definitely has a stronger gravitas.
It's stronger, and I feel like she can ramp it up when she needs to, but I get the feeling that she either is unable to or does not care to ever turn it off the whole way.
That's what I mean by stronger. I don't think she can turn it off.
Right. I don't know if that's just because why would she ever learn how?
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, in the beginning, it sounds like she wants to be able to, she's achingly lonely. And so in the beginning, it sounded like if she could turn it off, she would.
So I agree with you, except her whole thing is that she wants equals who can be honest and genuine with her instead of affected by her powers, right? That's the party line through so much of this book. But then her proxies, which is what Lita is, she has this group of people who can astral project into cyborgs, basically. And they are unaffected by her powers when they are astral projecting. And all of that is fine and dandy until the second they question her. And she takes that as the greatest betrayal it turns her into a psychopathic, like, homicidal maniac. But that was literally what she was asking for the whole time. I want someone to be able to question me and challenge me. But the second they actually do, she goes off the deep end. I think she never actually wanted it. She just thought she did.
That's possible. But if she thinks she did, like, you would think that she would still try to attempt to turn it off.
But like, there's degrees of how much she actually wanted it.
Unless you're saying that unconsciously because she unconsciously didn't want it, she wouldn't have attempted to turn it off that hard. Really?
I think she convinced herself she wanted it, but I don't think she really did, no. And if she had truly wanted it, she would have tried. Maybe she did try, and she is truly incapable of it. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, in fact, possible the whole time, but because she didn't actually want sincerity.
Yeah, I could see that.
I guess I'm just saying, I feel like the door has been left open because of how she reacted when she was questioned ever. The single time that she's ever questioned, the door, I think, has been left open for that possibility.
Yeah, I could see that.
But it's also possible that, yeah, gravitas is used differently by different people, and her way is just that way.
Yeah.
Because I got the impression that Thray can, well, maybe his is just weaker, so he has to ramp it up to use it.
I think that's the case. Like, okay. He's demonstrably weaker than Abris.
Yeah.
And he has to really work to, like, use it on a lot of people and make it stick, unless he takes the supercharger.
The enhancement thing.
Yeah.
I do really love, though, in this book that they point out that Thray is able to command people without using his gravitas. Which I really liked that. I mean, they don't go into it very much, but we do see him commanding loyalty from people just because of the type of leader he is, which is such a contrast with Abris.
Yeah, it's just another way that the two are different, for all that they have these similarities, and that they're both, leaders of a space faction, and they're related to each other. And
I just liked the comment on how that makes him actually more dangerous because he doesn't even need the gravitas. But that's also just like, no, that's just being nice to people sometimes.
Is he all that nice to people? I don't know. I think he has charisma.
Okay, but that's one of the things that many of the characters in the book point out to Caden. He has really done very, very good things.
You can do good things and not be nice to people.
That's true. But I think that we are only seeing his interactions with Caden. I think it's possible that for his own ends, he's nice to people so that they will follow him. I guess, yes. Okay, definitions of nice. You know what I mean, though.
I think that he can be nice to people. I think often it's a very self-serving nice.
I mean, would you rather serve a leader who is nice to you so that you follow them, or a leader who rules with an iron fist?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't want to follow Abris.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe nice isn't quite the right word, but
yeah,
he understands that people will help him if he helps them.
I think he knows how to be a leader. Yeah. Which Abris knows how to be in charge. Like,
that's a good point.
Yeah, there's a difference there.
Speaking of Thray, it sounds like I think the phrasing you used was, he has been demoted from trash villain to anti-hero.
No, I said, well, that's close. I said he has been demoted from trash villain and promoted to anti-hero.
Oh, okay. That sounds like kind of the same thing.
I do like him a little less now that he's not a trash villain, I have to say. I miss my trash villain Thray. I think he's a better guy than that.
I really like how this character has been saying the same thing for 2 books, but before that made him a villain, but now it makes him a hero. Like, yes, the exact same thing. We just found out that he wasn't crazy. Abris is as dangerous as he has been saying.
Yeah, he wasn't making things up. I mean, you're right. That's a really interesting shift in perspective. The that Azura Ghost brings us, which I love, even if it does mean that he's no longer a trash villain.
Anti-heroes can be fun too.
Yeah, but trash villains are sexier.
Well, he also has a cute romance at the end, which completely changes. He's no longer dark and edgy and sexy. Now it's like, oh.
Yeah, he has a soft scientist partner, which is cute.
And they finally get to meet in person.
Yeah.
Because he's been trapped in a different dimension for 10 years, and that's how they built their long distance relationship. It's extremely cute.
It's very sweet, which possibly is why I miss the trash villain, because it's very sweet.
I think it's so Pharaon, his Andaluvian, I think is the race of alien with the emotion pigments, right? And they change colors.
I think so, yeah.
Like cuttlefish. I was actually more on the fence about Pharaon than I was about Thray in either of these books. Because they have done some fucked up shit and gone, no, it's okay. It's science. Don't worry about it. It's for the sake of science. It's fine.
Yes, I think that Pharaon is probably a little morally dubious. I don't have a disagreement with you.
No. Thray has done everything theoretically. Now he could be lying and just doing this because he really hates his sister, but the fact that he's been justified on everything he said,
I think what it is that we know Thray's motivation,
right? So if he's being truthful about his motivation, that he is trying to save the world from his sister, who he happens to also dislike, then I totally understand why he would think that the ends justify the means. Did he kill a bunch of people? Yeah, but she is killing a lot more. Whereas Pharaon doesn't care. And that's a little terrifying.
I hope that I imagine that we will see more of Pharaon in book 3 and learn a little bit more about them and their motivations beyond doing it for the science.
I mean, I'm okay with them doing it for the science. I just think it's interesting how these two, finding out that these two characters are together shifted my opinion of both of them so much. But I think ultimately Pharaon has had more of a PR rehab from it than our trash villain Thray. So that's just interesting, right? Because you're describing them as soft scientists, but maybe terrifying, okay with the murder just for the sake of learning stuff, wanting to vivisect Caden scientist.
But they don't actually vivisect Caden.
Through no fault of their own.
I don't know.
Anyway, I really like both of those characters and the fact that they get together. I just think it's very interesting how they're both portrayed, and then how their very sweet, intimate moment changes my view of them in different ways.
I think for me, it changed my view of Thray more than it changed my view of Pharaon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
But maybe that's just because there was more Thray opinion to change.
Maybe. I think Thray had already sort of become the anti-hero to me by that point. So I was just like, yes, this fits into this new version of Thray that I have come to know very well over the last however many chapters of the book. Whereas Pharaon, I didn't dislike them. They're a good character, but definitely were firmly in the bad guy, Mangala scientist camp in my mind.
Yeah, Pharaon wasn't quite that far over for me.
I was maybe being a little dramatic, but that was the first reference I could think of. I think I've probably shared this pet peeve before. Because autocorrect continues to do very strange things.
What has autocorrect done now?
Well, I will say it's not if I mistype a word and it picks the wrong one, that's fine. But if I type one real word and it changes it into a different one, that's extremely frustrating. In this case, you went to a concert a couple weeks ago. Remember how you did that? But every time I wanted to talk to you about it, my phone really wanted me to ask about your convertible. I don't even use that word ever. Who talks about convertibles?
Certainly no one in our class level.
I also was discussing a very bad attempt at bandaging a scraped knee I have. And I was saying that I have done a very janky job. It was the jankiest bandage, except my phone really wanted me to say that it was the manliest bandage.
Aren't those the same things, really, when you get down to it?
Well, I think I maybe have to cut autocorrect some slack because I don't think jankiest is an actual word. So, to be fair. But it does significantly change the meaning of that sentence.
Does it, though? Does it really?
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We're on Twitter and Instagram at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye.
Unless they're a trash villain, you can give them a hug instead.